Will The Flash be in the running for your favorite comic book movie? Should you speed over to your local theater to watch it? Or is it just a flash in the pan? What's up, my dude? Your friendly neighborhood Tony here. I just got back from an early screening of The Flash, and I have to say, I hate how much I love this movie. Of course, this review will have no spoilers. As I do with all my reviews, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about the movie, then I'll go over the pros and cons, and then finally break down who I think this movie is for, if anyone. If that kind of thing sounds good to you and you want to see more movie reviews just like this, make sure you subscribe. All right, so The Flash is directed by Andy Muschietti, who you might know from directing It and It Chapter 2. He is a fantastic director who hasn't done a ton of work, but I am definitely excited for whatever he has in the future. It's written by Christina Hodson, who also wrote Bumblebee and Birds of Prey, which was okay. I feel like it got a lot more hate than it deserved. But there's also a story credit by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, who are the two guys that wrote the most recent Dungeons and Dragons movie, which if you saw my review for that, you know I loved it. And you could definitely see their hand in this movie. Now, the movie stars Ezra Miller as Barry Allen and Barry Allen. You have Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck playing the Batmen, and kind of a newcomer, Sasha Calle, who is playing Supergirl. Oh, and then of course, if you've seen the trailers, you see that General Zod is back, so we have Michael Shannon as well. So let me give you a quick plot summary right off the interweb, so no spoilers here. In The Flash, Barry Allen travels back in time to prevent his mother's death, which in turn creates an alternate reality without metahumans. Barry then enlists the help of his younger self, the Batman of that universe, and Supergirl to help fight against General Zod and return to his own timeline. So this review is going to be pretty front heavy because I have a lot of pros and just a couple cons. Right off the bat, The Flash nails the one most important thing that a summer blockbuster needs to do, and that is, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. You know, some of the criticisms that people have had for the DC movies over the past several years have been that they just take themselves a bit too seriously. And although, yes, this movie is serious in parts when the story calls for it, but it also doesn't forget that at the end of the day, this is a comic book movie about a superhero with some pretty dope powers, just trying to save the world. But of course, it's not all just yucks. This movie has a great balance of emotional weight and stakes. Barry's going through a lot in this movie, and at the heart of it, it's all just about a boy's love for his mother. And I don't know about y'all, but I would run through space and time to save my mom, so I get it. The casting is also another very strong point of this movie. Of course, you have Ezra Miller playing the Flash, which, just get it together, man. As I mentioned before, I hate that I love this movie so much, and a part of that is, of course, because of Ezra Miller. And the fact of the matter is that they are fantastic as the Flash. And if you can separate the art from the artist, there is so much to enjoy with their performance in this movie. The way Ezra plays both versions of the Flash is fantastic. You know, you can see the connecting threads of their personalities, but it also makes total sense why there would be diversions in the way that the both characters view the world. The rest of the cast is also amazing. Michael Keaton gets a lot of development as Batman, both in the movie and in the gap between his last performance as Batman and this one. We really see his character go through a lot of changes. And I think this is something that honestly Michael Keaton could have just phoned it in for, but I get the feeling that this character is really important to him. At least that's how it seems in the movie. I also love Sasha Calle as Supergirl. She doesn't get a ton of screen time, but the time that she does get is very impactful. I really hope we get a lot more of her in the future in whatever she decides to do next. Truly, the casting in this movie is almost entirely phenomenal. There is one very minor character that I didn't love necessarily, but we'll get into that when I get to the cons. Also, as with any time travel multiverse movie, there is a lot of room to really mess up the science. Now look, I know it's all make-believe, it's not real science, but even though it's make-believe, the writers and the director have to make me believe that it's possible, or at the very least that it makes sense. And they do. They don't spend a ton of time explaining all the intricacies of how they're navigating through the multiverse, but they do enough to where you buy it, and it doesn't take you out of the story at all. And now look, I know that there is at this point a million different multiverse and time travel movies out there, some that are in theaters right now, but Flashpoint, which is what this movie is based on, is one of the OGs. So try to put aside the fact that we literally just watched Across the Spider-Verse and let this stand on its own, because it does. The movie also brings with it a ton of fan service, cameos, nods to old DC properties. And I know that at times fan service can be something that feels forced and really take you out of the story. But the way that they wrote this story and the way that they put it all together makes total sense and you really buy it. It all just fits so perfectly. So if you are a current DC fan or have been at any time in your life, you're going to get so much out of this movie. The only thing that might be a little annoying is that everyone in the theater is going to be cheering and clapping at multiple times, so you might miss a little bit of dialogue, but I feel like that's a good problem to have. Now, as far as the cons, the one big one that I have with this movie is some of the CG. Some of the heavy effect scenes were a little bit jarring. You know, I've heard people talk about when you have two Ezra Millers on screen at any given time, they're doing some kind of like a face swap with one of them. I didn't personally notice it, but my girlfriend definitely did. So maybe that's just on me. It may be something that you noticed, but again, I didn't. One thing I did notice though is that there were a number of scenes that did this Robert Zemeckis Polar Express kind of halfway between CG and real life character thing. And you would think that that tech would have gotten a lot better in the past 20 years, but not by enough. Now, I do think that there's a reason that they go that route with some of the CG and some of the characters in this movie. So it does kind of make sense if that's what they were going for, but still, it is jarring and it does take you out for just a moment. And my only other nitpick really is a very minor character. So if you're familiar with The Flash and his story, you're probably also familiar with Iris West. They do have her in this movie very, very briefly, and I felt like it was kind of unnecessary, almost like it was an afterthought. Like they thought, well, we have to have some kind of a love interest in this movie, so they just threw her in a couple scenes. And then what they do with their relationship together felt like a leap. Maybe it was because we just saw so little of it. Maybe there was more that they cut out of the movie. But with what we got, I felt like they should have just cut it out completely, or at least instead of going from A to Z with their relationship, give us a smaller snippet of it. It's really hard to explain exactly what I mean with that without spoiling anything about the movie, even though it is a very minor plot point. But once you see it, I think you'll know exactly what I mean. So to sum it all up, The Flash may very well be the best DCEU movie we've gotten. If only they had come out with it 5 years ago when they originally intended to. Even still, it is a must watch for anybody that considers themselves a DC fan or that has been a DC fan at any point in their life. It's got heart, over the top comic book style action, so many laughs, and just about all the fan service you could stand. Is it perfect? No, but nothing is. What I can say is it's a damn good time at the movies. But if you don't want to wait for The Flash to come out to see something in theaters, maybe you should check out the latest Transformers movie. I just did a review of that and I'll post it right over here for you, so you can jump on into that if you want to check it out and see what I think. Otherwise, if you want to see more movie reviews just like this, trailer reactions, ranking videos, all that good stuff, make sure you subscribe. All right, I'll catch you in the next one. Be good.